Are you not entertained?
Yes, sir! We'll have a real good time!
He's Dave, and I'm Dallas, and this is Vintertainment. We have opinions on just about everything. Sometimes those opinions are spot on. Sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine. This is Vintertainment, the wine and entertainment pairing podcast.
Okay, listeners and winos, we here at Vintertainment have a little detour for you today. We are calling this Just Bought a Ticket, maybe or maybe not. We haven't decided. This whole thing may be edited out. We'll see. Dave and I randomly get a wild hair to go and do something out in the world that involves being around other human beings, which is probably easier for Dave. And this week, Easter Sunday was, in fact, the day we chose, and we decided to go see Sinners, the new Ryan Coogler Warner Brothers film. So, join us for a brief meandering episode, reviews as we spew off about a piece of entertainment that we have to leave our home or office to ingest, and with a pairing at the end, maybe. I'll go ahead and let Dave give a quick version of our intro spiel here. So, Dave, take it away.
Absolutely. So I actually think I'm probably going to call this theatrical tasting, is what I'm thinking might be the thing tasting. Rather. Yeah, instead of something to bring in the wine thing, because we are going to do the wine pairing. So that is definitely a thing. So yes, folks, we are Vintertainment. We normally are a podcast where we deep dive into different pieces of pop culture and art and pair it with a wine or other boozy beverage, or even sometimes non-boozy beverages. A piece of entertainment and beverage pairing. That's our fun little shtick, while also talking about both at length. So if you know nothing about wine, no worries. We give you a little bit of wine education, kind of introduce you to different styles of wine and why or why not they would pair with different pieces of entertainment. And normally, this is going to be a mini episode. We're going to try to make this a mini episode. Our episodes are normally about an hour in length. Usually a little over, but we try to keep it as close to an hour as possible. And this one, we're going to try and make it as close to half an hour as possible. So my intro spiel is going to be very short as well. Please give us a follow or subscribe if you like what you hear today and you want to hear more. Also, you can find us on vintertainmentstudios.com. That is our Substack, where we do a lot of bonus pairings, articles on wine and entertainment. We do interactive polls. In the future, we might do some live watch parties and things of that nature. So we have lots of plans, but you can find us and interact with us there on vintertainmentstudios.com. We hope to see you there. Also on Instagram, vintertainmentpod. That is our Instagram account. We hope to see you there as well. And otherwise, and you know what? If you love what you hear today, spread the word, tell a friend or family member. Right. All right. I think that's everything. That's our mini opening. That's us in a nutshell. And today we're going to talk about Sinners. We just saw it in the theater 48 hours ago on Sunday, and this is a Tuesday that we're recording. So we're going to talk about it. We have some delicious beverages that we are going to pair with it and talk about why this movie is kind of important at this moment. So Dallas, take it away.
Okay. So you wanted a fright? Well, then the Ryan Coogler written and directed film Sinners is just for you. But if you wanted an even bigger scare, then maybe you should be a studio head this week. Dave knows what I'm talking about. So does probably anyone else in the entertainment industry. The biggest scare of the entire film didn't come from any of the film's vampires, but instead came from the hands of Coogler himself when he negotiated a deal for a rights reversion after 25 years, which, according to some sources, has the studio heads in a tizzy. Not only for the rarity of such a deal, but also because the deal was given on a wholly original film idea and to a black director. Coogler has... Ding, ding, ding. Black, right. Hey, studio heads, if you really want to relaunch the film industry, then give black people some money. Anyway, Coogler has gone on record saying that he does not control any of the rights to any of his previous films and has no plans to barter such deals in the future. Now, what exactly was the deal? Well, as far as I can hunt down, there were three primary clauses. First was a final cut agreement meaning the final distributed edit of the film is to be created and approved by Coogler himself. This is uncommon because in studio terms, final cuts are often at the discretion of the studio, which can lead to edit by quorum or committee. And Dave and I, having been in this industry for so long, can tell you that some great films have been ruined, positively ruined by committee and quorum. Namely, World War Z, right?
Yes. That said, if you're a director, like an auteur director, like a Scorsese or a De Palma, people like that, where it's like you get to a seniority level where you do get final cut often, like it's in all of your contracts going forward. So it's not uncommon. It's not rare. It's uncommon, but not like ultra rare or anything like that. But you have to be a Tarantino. I guarantee you gets final cut on everything.
Yeah, so, actually, we'll talk about him in a minute. That's right. Yeah,
exactly. Paul Thomas Anderson, I guarantee you gets final cut on everything. Like if you're that type of director and you've established like the people are financing your film because it's you, because it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film, right? That is the point. Right. But if you are more of a workhorse director, like you make studio films, your name is on some very big blockbusters, but you're not known as like a singular voice. Michael Bay might get final cut. I actually have no idea about Michael Bay. I'm not sure if he cares. Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah, he does now.
Okay. See,
he's
that's my thing. Is
I'm like himself at this point.
At this point, I'm sure he could have it if he wanted it. I just don't know if he wants it. But you have to be at that level and that name brand recognition. Then they'll give you final cut. Likely not otherwise. Anyways, go ahead, Dallas.
And like we said, some noteworthy sort of examples of this final cut by quorum is World War Z. If you guys know anything about World War Z and the production of that film, it was upended by a lot of the post-production editing and re-editing by studio heads and people who had their hands in the reshoots, simply because it's a way from the studio perspective to mitigate potential financial risk. Unfortunately, they are attempting to edit a creative sort of vehicle from the perspective of financial risk, which almost always goes wrong. The second part of the deal is a first dollar gross. That means that Coogler gets a share of the film's gross revenue from the first dollars earned rather than waiting for net receipts. And anybody who decides they want to go into the entertainment industry, particularly film, and move to Hollywood or wherever, remember, gross over net. That's all I'll say. You'll probably come up against that at some point.
I will also just tell you, these days, it's such an art form, studio accounting,
Absolutely.
You will never see net. You will never see net. There's no such thing. They essentially make it so that their film, quote unquote, never makes a profit. So they don't have to pay out net profits. Anyways, go ahead.
Absolutely. And the third part of the deal is rights reversion, which we were talking about earlier, which grants that after a period of 25 years, Coogler retains full ownership of the work. First of all, 25 years ago, I think a 25-year deal would have seemed really fantastic. But today, with the way and so the volatility in the industry and the change that we're undergoing, a 25-year deal probably means that we're going to go through at least 4 or 5 other apocalyptic sort of moments in the film industry by the time he gets to recoup on that. So I don't know if it's great, if it's not, but from the studio perspective, this idea of rights reversion, while not unheard of, is definitely uncommon. It seems that the fear from the studio perspective is, of course, not being able to hold and exploit these rights in perpetuity, which has generally been the case in the past. Think of all the serials and sequels and TV adaptations, the books, the merchandising that comes after a film's release many decades, right? That's generally how studios maintain their money, their revenue. And often they will hold on to certain rights of certain films to offset the cost or losses for other films that are on their slate. So again, as Dave was talking about the accounting, it gets very, we like to say creative. It is a creative accounting. And so this idea...
It's also important... It's also important to note that this probably means, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, Dallas, but I just realized that it's not just about making sequels and continuing on milking a franchise or IP, but like this takes it out of their library, right? The film itself.
Yeah. It takes it from, it's essentially what they're doing is holding on to these properties on their sort of proverbial shelf to exploit at any opportunity.
Their
in
library
any way.
IP value, their total
Absolutely.
value of the library, which then, but this movie would essentially, like, if let's say it was HBO, it's not, but let's say it was Warner Brothers. What is it? Warner Brothers? Who has
I think
this?
it's Warner
Paramount.
Brothers. Yeah, I think it's Warner
It's
Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Okay.
Yeah.
So Warner Brothers. So yeah, HBO for now. Anyway, so Warner Brothers HBO kind of a thing. So imagine this was streaming on Max. It was part of all their things that they, their library, their IP, and then they make sequels. La 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 la. I'm assuming it's this film in particular, but maybe even if they made sequels, would they lose the rights to all that? It's interesting. I'm not an IP lawyer, so I'm not 100% certain.
So in most cases, that idea of rights reversion means he retains the rights to the original IP, the produced version, and the ability to exploit them at will. So like you were saying with the studio, generally the studio holds those rights and they can hold them on their proverbial shelf. And oftentimes the money that studios make from IP that's just sitting on their shelves, the public, we never know about it because a lot of it happens in sort of licensing deals or allowing someone to develop a new IP based on it. And so it's a lot of behind the scenes sort of exploitation of the IP. And when you take that away, you take away that sort of revenue, that sort of back in sort of not back alley, but backroom revenue, which the studios thrive on. It's all about making the deals and leveraging a new director or an old IP, an old film, or whatever it is. So you do sort of take the power away from them to exploit it, as you were saying.
Sure. No, I was just wondering, like, what about the films they make that is this IP? Like, do they get to hold on to those?
You mean the actual film itself? No, he gets to.
But what about sequels? What if they make sequels?
Again, that depends on the deal, right? On the ultimate
deal, right? And that's what I'm not sure of. Like, if they, do they?
But in general, if it's something that's based on that original IP, the person who retains the ownership, control of that IP, has to be involved in the conversation.
But so my question, or the question in my mind is just, does that even tamp down their incentive to make sequels and to continue to milk the IP? Because then the question is, does this deal allow them to have Sinners 2, Sinners 3, Sinners 4, or whatever, the universe that they make, and then 25 years later he gets the IP back to do whatever he wants with it, but they have everything that they financed, all the productions, maybe including the original as well. Like, yes, those are theirs, but they can't make more. Now if he wants to reboot it or whatever, like, it's his at that point, which so that probably would make the most sense.
Yeah. So in that 25-year period, and I think this is one of the reasons the deal is kind of sweet, even from the studio perspective, because the timeline we take now to create a sequel and crank them out from anything that's successful has decreased significantly. So 25 years, like I was saying earlier, in the 90s, a 25-year deal, that would seem like no time whatsoever. But now that's kind of a lifetime to exploit an IP. So in that 25-year period interim, I think they have a great opportunity to just milk the absolute hell out of it. And they likely will. I do think that 25-year deal might have de-incentivized them a few years back. But now I think they've got more than enough time to make billions of dollars off this IP before rights reverse.
Well, and just to put this in perspective, folks, like 25 years, that would be very close to like the original Matrix, right? Yeah. Would have now, roughly, gone back into the Wachowskis' hands.
Actually, you're right. Of course, we all saw right?
So now we all saw the Matrix 4, so we know what that generally meant if they wanted to. But of course, it also probably would have meant there would have been no Matrix 4. Like because they were a little forced into that position to make something, and so they made that as the thing they wanted to make. Personally, I love Matrix 4. I think it's the best since the original.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, I do think it is the best thing since the original. I like it much better than Matrix 2 or 3, outside of the fact that 2 and 3 does have marvelous actions, like set pieces that are above and beyond, like that still have yet to be matched in terms of sheer creativity and scale. But story-wise, since the first one, I'm like, yeah, first and last one, you can kind of just watch the YouTube videos, like the collections of the best action scenes from 2 and 3. I mean, some of them are long.
Really?
It's like a 15-minute long action scene, but God, story-wise, bleh.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's on my list. I have this sort of list. I think we discussed this a few years ago. I want to watch the latest installment, but I need to rewatch all of them in order first, because out of context, my brain's like, okay, this means nothing to me. So before I watch 4, I'm probably going to go back and do a marathon, maybe a weekend marathon of the first 3. So, all right, where are we? So, reversion perspective. Yes. Few other directors have managed to negotiate deals of this magnitude. Generally, as we were talking about earlier, it's reserved for those who either have an amazing sort of brand, or they take on great personal risk, like you get Gibson's Passion, Linklater's Boyhood, and in more general terms, Tarantino inked a rights reversion deal for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But in general, these deals are few and far between. And while a few black directors have managed to maintain a certain degree of control over their work, including the likes of DuVernay, Lee, and Van Peebles, the deal Coogler seems to have inked is likely unprecedented. It's a $90 million budget, first of all. I also heard a bit today that he recouped almost 50% of their production budget in the first week, which again, phenomenal returns. Just a phenomenal showing. And I'm going to take a bit of a detour here real quick, Dave. You and I, when we left the film, we started discussing, actually when we were standing in line, personally, Dave and I generally steer clear of trailers. I think maybe me more than Dave, but
no, I never watched. If I'm not sitting in a theater, the rare time. So we've only gone to the theater. Like, we are not good theater goers, unfortunately, or haven't been in recent years. Like, we go like 2 or 3 times a year, if that. Yeah. So this was our first time in 2025 actually setting foot in a theater. So if I'm in a theater, I'm okay with it, because I'm like, well, this happens so rarely. Let's watch all the trailers. Fuck it. But online, I watch absolutely zero trailers. I don't want to. I do not want to.
Can't do it. It just... And you know what it is for me? I know the manipulation. I know the art of the trailer, right? It is pure manipulation. They are showing you that,
and they show you too much. We know that in this modern era, trailers are not that rarely inventive anymore. They're just, here are the best moments to get you to come, and it's like, okay, but now I've seen the best moments,
right?
And probably, and I probably know too much about the story, especially if it's a new thing like Sinners. So we went into Sinners blind. We did not even know it was a horror movie.
That's right.
We thought in fact, I had read a couple of things where someone had called it a non-horror movie. I think it was people who also hadn't seen it. And so they just were going off of, the poster, and it's like, oh, it's a period piece and it's violent, but not a straight up horror movie. I thought the horror, quote unquote, it was going to be more metaphorical, more poetic. To be fair, there might have even been a better movie in there if they had done that rather than gone 100% literal with it. But this one is more fun, admittedly, than probably the metaphorical version. This is a little less serious, a little more silly, a lot more fun. I enjoyed it, but I remember going online, I'm on Letterboxd, and I remember new people, like younger folks, watching From Dusk Till Dawn, the Quentin Tarantino vampire film, for the first time in like the last 10 years, are always complaining about that movie, because they're like, it takes so much time before we get to the vampires, and it pretends like we don't know it's about vampires. Like, why won't they just, like, it's not a reveal, man. We know what this movie is. And to be fair, even back in the 90s, we did that too. So that's kind of like one of the criticisms that movie gets, is why is it so slow burn if we know where this is going? And the fun part about Sinners, it's even more slow burn.
It really is.
From Dusk Till Dawn ever was. But I really appreciated it, because I didn't think they were actually going to go there. And then they did. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. This is. So it was such a pleasant surprise, folks. If you cannot watch, if you can cut the umbilical cord
Please
to
do.
all the teasers, all the trailers, all the talk, all the blah, blah, blah. be surprised sometimes in your fucking life. Just let information not be ever present and be bombarded with it and drowning in it at all times. You have that choice. You fucking do. Don't give me that shit. I chose not to do it, and I can do it anytime I want. I can watch it when I want, and I can avoid it when I want. It is not that hard. It will take you a touch of time to learn how, because you're so wedded to your ways probably already, but it's not that hard. Sometimes you might want to do it. Don't give me this bullshit that it's impossible or that you can't or spoilers are everywhere. No, they're not.
Now, I'm going to take another little detour here because it just crossed my mind. Dave and I are of the generation where I used to actually have to look in the newspaper to find what films were in town that week, or you could call Movie Phone later, right? And it was an interesting sort of dynamic because, one, I had to come across at least one ad about a film or hear word of mouth, and then I needed to go and get the synopsis on the phone or read the synopsis in the back of the newspaper. And it wasn't a visual that was sort of just beamed into my head that showed me the best bits. It gave me the crack of the movie, so to speak. And then after that, what came along was, and I remember distinctly being such a fan of this, was Apple movie trailers. You remember this? When I think it was 2004, and it was just a site for the trailers for films that were upcoming, and it was just brief trailers, and that sort of was amazing in a sense because it was a bit more visceral, a bit more interactive, a bit more engaging, and now we've reached that sort of critical mass where I really just want to go back to not being bombarded by trailers every goddamn second of every day. So Dave is right. Guys, check out of the constant engagement of the trailer world because it is ruining not only your expectations, but it's also ruining the experience of movie going for you. I promise you it is.
Well, and it's also, again, what you consume, what you take in, what you give your time to, studios are going to see just the eyeballs that are on it and think they have to do that forever, every time. They will never not do it because they're like, well, but 3.5 million people watch the fucking thing, so we got to make another one. We got to do that for the next movie, and we got to do it this way. And so you can watch a trailer and be like, why are all these trailers so horrible? But you keep watching them, you keep watching all of them, and it's like, yeah, they're never going to get better then, because all they can care about is that you're watching them. And if you do, that means the way they're making them must be doing the job. And you are coming back to watch them again and again and again. If you want anything to change, your attention is what is currency. Not your attention is more currency than your money.
Facts. Say it again. Say that again.
Your attention, and this is something that is actually getting a lot of traction in conversation. Like there's in politics, even like we are in an attention economy at this point, where attention matters more than everything else. Someone can think about politicians, right? One person can outraise the amount of money that another person has, but if the other person is getting the attention, the money doesn't matter.
That's right.
It only matters that attention. And we're in the streaming era where what they care about in streaming, I mean, yes, you need to subscribe to them, so they care that you have subscribed for that month or whatever. That's money in a sense, but what they're going to make year in and year out, or what they're going to pay good dollars to have the rights to show on their streaming platform, is what you watch. So if you are watching all the shit that you don't want them to be making, you want them to make better things, if you watch it, too fucking late, man. You voted for it. You're like, that's all they care about. You gave them that attention, and that is going to get you more of that. And if you're not watching a lot more of other things, all we're going to get is more of that. You give them your attention, that is what we're going to get for the rest of our lives until you stop giving them your attention.
And remember that the next election cycle, kids, okay? Remember that.
Remember that. And on that note also, this movie, It's a horror movie. Very slow burn, though, right? It takes a while before it shows its hand.
Mm-hmm.
It really takes its time developing these characters. They are somewhat archetypal
Yeah.
characters.
Oh, yeah.
They're not super deep per se, but you still spend a lot of time with them and just get to know them as people, as real human characters, rather than an archetype that's there to be slaughtered, right? Which is what most horror movies kind of do. And if this was a studio film, if like Ryan Coogler did not have full artistic say and control, there is no studio on earth that would have thought it was a good idea to go as long as this movie does without the horror happening, without scares, without moments of death that are from the horror part of things. And this movie, this is a 2-hour, 20-minute movie that easily goes 1 hour in before it does jack shit with anything. And the horror probably is only the last 40, 45 minutes, maybe, if that. It takes so much of its sweet time. And it's doing amazing in the box office, which is the thing, is like now studios are going to be able to look at this movie and be like, it doesn't have to follow. Now, this movie is not somewhat of a formula. Like we compared this to Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah, there's great genre, great formula, but it's done well. It's married to other things.
But it's done well. People are responding to it. And I think what people are responding to too is this is a little different. It's not wildly different, but it's like, cool. This is not the studio formula. This is not the way it would have been given to us if Netflix had made this.
You know, to that point, I was thinking about this when we were in the cinema, in the actual theater. There were at least 4 to 5 moments when the entire theater erupted in applause. And that, first of all, that's actually very difficult to do, right? I mean, it was an authentic sort of thing where the audience was like en masse sort of applauding these moments because there was the combination of expectation. You wanted that. You're in a genre film, a quasi-genre film, because there are certain things you kind of expect. And he gave you those things. But I think the reason it seemed so different from what we've been experiencing for the past 25 years is that that slow burn is real. I mean, that first hour is just onboarding, and that is so.
And I was utterly convinced this was just a period drama.
So, honestly, I thought maybe we might get a little juju, a little sort of, a little magic, but for it to take, I thought it was going to be.
I thought it was going to have horror the way like Possession back in the day was a horror film, or things where it's like it's metaphorical. It's almost like I mean, horror demons, but it's all representative of just. Of basic human horror, not the true blue supernatural. And to be fair, this movie does have a lot of thematic structure to it. It is trying to make its horror meaningful. It's race relations, it's a tapestry oppression.
My sort of it's genre meets new folklore. It's a woven tapestry of like Black Americana. Old world mythos, new world visual collage, and it's fairly seamless. And to Dave's point, there's a scene in the film, which we won't give too much away, but visually, it is so impactful and pulls the viewer in a way that I don't think I've seen many films do in a very long time. It forces you to pay attention to the detail. And so often, in particular in horror films, you kind of passively watch these things because they do feel like genre. They do feel like...
And it's not a scene of horror. It's not just it's not one of it's like, well, we got to pull out all the stops because we're a horror movie and this is our big horror moment or something like that. This was just a very expressionistic take on a scene where, again, it's about the themes of the movie, and it really drives home the main core central theme of the movie of culture and art and music and dance, and how these things are so important, and how our lives and the meaning of our lives and the power of the pull of the past has not the pull of the past has on the present, but the influence the past
Yeah.
can have and the power the past can give to the present.
Yeah.
Because it's not a negative thing. It's meant as, because
Right.
the past can drag down the present as well. It can be a
Right.
negative factor if you're being too traditional and not allowing progress and not allowing the younger generations and to take over and do their thing and blah, blah, blah. It can be a negative thing, but the past can also feed and empower the present by, you know, cultural specificity and not losing that. And having all of our all of our past cultural specificities come together and coexist and celebrate together. And so there's this expressionistic scene where it's all happening at once, and it's done visually in this way that you're not expecting, is kind of at odds with the style of the rest of the movie, but it works because it's, when it starts to happen, I remember when it started to happen, I was like, wait, is this movie doing? And then it kept doing it.
Yeah.
And there was a moment my brain was like, do I like this? Am I okay with this? I'm not. This is kind of like, this is breaking. It's kind of like breaking the first time anyone ever broke the fourth wall. And you've never experienced that before. You know, it's like breaking a thematic fourth wall.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like, stop the movie. Here's a visual term paper to let you know what's going on. And you're like, but it's done in this very, it's so energetic. It's so full of life and so full of, in for lack of a better term, joy. That you go along with it and you're like, this is silly AF, and I'm here for it.
100%. It's also motivated in the course of the film because the characters to whom it's happening are sort of what's the word, drunk, for lack of a better term. So there could be a world where it's justified through the sort of vision of the, you know, through the drunkenness, the intoxication. So that alone being,
but that becomes more metaphorical, right?
Yeah,
right. It's that thing you thought the movie was going to be, where all the supernatural elements were more metaphorical, more thematic, visually represented, but not real. They weren't actually like, you know, demons or vampires or whatever, or the spirits of the ancients weren't there. And then the movie is kind of like, yeah, but that too, they're also here.
Yeah, they're also here.
And you're like, oh shit. Yeah, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, the future's here as well, just like the past is here, and here it is, you know.
Yes. So I will say, folks, you know, Dallas, you know, for me, I've kind of already said, like, I really appreciated this movie. It's not thematically even. It's a little flawed. Like, not all its themes come together. It's
there
a
are
little messy.
There are issues.
There are issues, but it does work for the most. Like, every theme every connection tethering these themes together works well enough, even though you have to squint a little for some of them to make it work. Because you're like, that wasn't entirely thought out, but there's so much going on, and there's so many ideas and so many things being crammed into this movie that you're like, you know what? Cool.
Right.
I'm like, close enough. Good job, guys. Good job. I mean, this, go ahead.
It's that thing I do when I never thought of Coogler necessarily as an auteur. I think there are people who are sort of born auteurs who just sort of automatically think in terms of their own concept of art and thesis, and it's just a native thing. And there are people who come to it later as they sort of develop their skill. And I think Coogler's definitely the latter. I'm really excited to see what he comes to, you know, further on in his career, because he's attempting to do so much in this film. And so the effort is there, the forethought is there, the planning, the research, it's all there. And he does do a damn fine job of weaving it all together. Are there issues? Sure. Do any of those things matter? Because this is a fun cinematic experience. And I will say, this has been the most sort of satisfying and original cinematic experience I've had in a number of years. And I think because of the word of mouth of this film, people are having the same experience when they get into the theaters. And that onboarding we were talking about earlier, about that first act being just pure, you know, slice of life.
I think, I think people were dying for something different. Something like still fun, still entertaining, but different. Like
Right.
it can be both.
Right.
And it had been a while since I think we'd been living in this world where cinema had become very bifurcated in like it's one or the other. It is formula, it is pure studio, and I'm like entertaining in that way, but man, no surprises anymore. You know exactly what this is.
The dopamine
Even something like a Mission Impossible,
and it's expressed. Yeah.
Right. Even something like a Mission Impossible movie where you're like, we love the Mission Impossible movies, but at this point, you know, we're on the 8th one and we're like, yeah, but we know what it is. And when we get there, they are going to give us precisely that. They're not giving us anything different anymore.
Right.
And it's been a while since we had truly, and then of course you have your indie movies and you're like, you know, you could go see a horror movie like Skinamarink and wildly different. And you're like, oh shit, I don't even know what that was. I'm not sure what I just saw, but very small and very different. But this thing where it's like, this is a pure crowd pleaser and yet somehow still interesting and different. Those two things, we had forgotten how to tie them together.
Yeah. And I think he's, hey, it seems like we're back, man. Maybe we're back. Maybe this will light the fires, you know?
The last thing, and the last thing, just keep this a mini episode and then we're going to get to the pairings here. But the only thing I will say is like thematically, a lot of people mention how like it barely makes sense. Like, why are the vampires Irish? Like that's interesting.
There's deep stuff there, guys. He's doing deep stuff. I'm telling you.
There's decently deep stuff. I mean, it works and it doesn't, but it works enough. This is that version where it's like it works enough, but you got to squint. Where it's like the Irish were also kind of the shat upon white culture in America and across the world at that point. The vampires try to make a point to the African Americans that they're like, look, we were both handed, you know, Christianity, religion, or, you know, Catholicism as like we were handed religion as a bullshit solace. So we didn't revolt against our masters, kind of a thing. Right. And it's like, we're the same, become one. Now, the Irish people are still the vampires and they still need the African-American music to call their own people. And apparently their own cultural heritage isn't powerful enough to call their own people. That's a little thing where I'm like, that was a little mean to say about the Irish music and culture, but you got to squint a little.
Well, one of the secondary concepts is a commentary on the archetypes of whiteness, right? So there's this whole thing going around now about the Irish, over the past of the.
They were the ones who were slaves at one point, and so like there were white slaves too.
Not just that. Not just that. It's the idea that the Irish are white now. That's a fairly new concept. Irish. What are you watching? Oh, Fly.
Yep.
I was like, oh no, he's cracking up. But it's the idea that the Irish transformed themselves into a white people, but for years they never thought collectively, culturally, they never thought of themselves as white people. So it's basically about the sort of Irish.
And this movie takes place in the 1930s, right?
So essentially, the idea that these Irish are sort of, they have this using this commonality between them and Black people to then sort of become the villains in the Black people's story. Great commentary in general happening around this film. All right, let's get to the wines. Damn it, what you got?
Yep. Okay, so I got my favorite. We went to a wine bar, Bar Covell, after we saw the movie, and I had this German Merlot that was very good. In Germany's a very cool climate, and this Merlot had this very almost like New York Finger Lakesy flavor to it. It's very fresh, very light. And then I had this Napa Valley red blend, which was much more dense and chewy and like proper Napa Valley red and really good. I was thinking something like that because like a nice deep red, don't go too light, don't go too fresh, guys. I feel like this movie, it's 2 hours, 20 minutes long. There's so much to chew on. It's bloody. But you know what? What I decided instead is I have this Pendray's Distillery Blood Orange Amaro liqueur.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
And this sucker, this is not only does it come in this little like flask like thing right here, right? So it's like, which feels so period proper for what we're doing. Like this is something someone would drink right out of it. And this is 60 proof. So this is 30% alcohol, proper, good, high alcohol content, which I definitely wanted on that. But Amaro as well. This is a brandy style Amaro, but made with blood oranges rather than grapes. And it is infused with a proprietary blend of 20 herbs, spices, barks, seeds, roots, and flowers, barrel aged for 12 months before bottling. And it even has this Pendray's Distillery has a motto that they put on the bottle that says, "Know thyself." And I feel like that is know thyself is kind of one of the core themes of this movie.
It really is.
Basically,
Wow.
that it gets down to. It's a blood orange, so you're going to have that nice, I mean, the blood part, obviously, really on the nose, but also blood orange. It's sweet and it's bitter. It's got that little extra bit of bitterness than a normal sweet orange has. And it's, an Amaro is going to be bittersweet. It's high alcohol. I was just like, I want something like this to sip on. This over an ice cube. Fuck yeah. Okay. This is what I want to do. Pendray's Distillery, Blood Orange Amaro liqueur. If you can find Blood Orange Amaro of any other brand, feel free. I don't know. This is the only one I've ever had. But that would be my pairing for Sinners.
Nice. So I... Okay. Problem here. Not a problem. Okay. I had two wines, but I'm going to go with this one because it is it's my favorite of the two, for sure. Okay. The old world nature of this film, right? Its setting is very familiar to me. I have family, of course, in the Deep South. I understand the sort of the ground. I understand the soil. I understand the milieu. I understand the influences, all of it. And I understand the tin roofs rusting, the sort of patchwood. It's just a very visceral and beautiful kind of colloquial palette. And even in terms of wine offerings, one thing you find in the South, of course, Deep South, are express wines. Those, we like to call them fruit wines, right? Sometimes call them fruit wines, even though all wines are technically fruit wines. But your muscadines, your all those dines, so to speak. But one thing you also find in the South, particularly when you talking about juke joints and these sort of party establishments in these rural areas that are created by families just to kind of be a space where people get to go and let their hair down. And you find honey wines, mead wines, honey mead.
Yes.
And for me, nothing is as sensuous, as expressly satisfying, as oddly deep. In terms of the flavor profile, sometimes it can be a little saccharinous. You can get dry honey wines, So for me, I went with a honey mead, a honey wine. And, I had an aunt who would often make her honey mead wine. And of course, you need yeast. Of course, you need the honey. Of course, you need water. You need time. You need a little heat. And there is this place in Mississippi, which is technically where the film takes place, called the Queen's Reward Meadery. And you guys can check them out online. I think they ship to most states at this point. But they do a sort of a full range. And I had one of theirs a while back, and it's just a great time. It's just a great time. It is difficult to go wrong with a honey mead or a honey wine because, like we were talking about with this film, you know what you're getting. Once you're there, you know what you're getting. Yeah. Once you're there, you know exactly what you're getting. And guess what? You want every damn drop of it. And that's what the experience of this film was for me. Like, once I realized where we were going, and again, he gets into the cosmic horror space, which is kind of the space where I operate as well. Mine is definitely a bit more intense than his, than what he's doing. But I'm just so happy to see somebody's getting the chance at bat to go wide with these ideas and this world building. And I was very satisfied, so I went with the honey wine, a honey mead wine. And
cool.
Yeah.
And what's your backup?
The backup was actually, oh yeah. So remember that it's the ZTS from
PS.
ZP.
Zin Petit Syrah? Or ZCS? Which would be a Zin Cab Sauv?
The ZCS. That's the one I had last night. ZCS.
Okay.
That was the backup. So, I went with the
Okay.
honey mead.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see
I'm
it.
the blending, good old blending lab.
Good old blending lab. Yeah.
But again, that dark red blend
Absolutely.
from Paso is going to be very similar to Napa in many ways. So that was where my brain was before my blood orange liqueur. But in the end, blood orange liqueur and honey mead. So we got a little outside the standard wine. But that's the point. This movie,
It's a little outside.
It's a little outside. It's
Just
still
enough.
in the ballpark, but a little outside.
Just enough.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, guys. This has been a theatrical tasting. Hope you enjoyed this little mini episode, and we will be back. This is just going to get shoehorned in somewhere as a special bonus episode, but normally we will still have our weekly full-length episodes. We're in the middle of our Coppola episodes right now, talking about The Godfather and Megalopolis and his winery empire and the entire story behind all that. So check those episodes out, and we'll catch you next time with another wine and entertainment pairing for your entertainment. Ciao for now. Enjoy. Go see Sinners.
Go see Sinners. Later, guys. Did you see the Keep?
The Keep, the document.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Keep. Sorry, The Keep is a movie. But you're like, did you see The Keep? I'm like, why are we talking about The Keep? Yes, the document in Keep. Full sentences, Dallas. Full sentences.
Fuck you. All right, let's go.